All right. Hello, everybody. Bobblehead's back with you for another episode. And today, what we're going to be talking about are new spoilers from Tales of Aria. So it's September. So do you know what that means? It's
Tales of Aria.
spoiler season. That's right. So it's only September 4th, but we already have lots of spoilers. We started out at the end of August with Lexi, who you can see here on the screen. And this was kind of the first preview we got of Tales of Aria. And it was really exciting. I know I was excited to see Ice and Lightning. And Andy, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I was thrilled. A lot of people were speculating, okay, so what does this mean? Does that mean there's going to be 6 essences and every hero is going to have 2 of their own? Or a lot of people correctly predicted that there would be 3 essences, and then the 3 heroes would each be a combination of 2 of each of the essences. And that turned out to be correct. We now have 2 of the 3 heroes spoiled. We'll talk about the other ones in a little bit, but first, let's go ahead and read Lexi, and we can kind of talk about what she's trying to do.
Yeah, and I will point out, we were one of the people that thought there would be 3 essences out there, and we turned out to be right. So not to toot our own horn or anything, but this has been really cool, and it's exciting to see it play out the way we thought. So Lexi is Lexi Livewire, an elemental ranger hero. And there are 2 things to pay attention to here. The first part is that she has the essence of ice and lightning, which means that she can have both ice and lightning cards in her deck, which we'll talk about here in a second because that's different than what's gone in the past. And also, her once per turn action is that she can turn a face down card that's already in her arsenal face up. If it's a lightning card, your next attack gains go again. And if it's an ice card, create a Frostbite token under the target hero's control, also go again. So that's Lexi. And I'm really excited for it. Like we saw before, this is different than before. So let's take a second to talk about how the essence of Ice and Lightning is different than the sets have come before us.
Sure. So the first 3 sets that we got, Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising, Crucible of War, they just had the classes, and it was either a generic card or it was a class card. And the class cards you can only play if your hero is the corresponding class. And then with Monarch, they added the light and the shadow talents, I think that was called. And then you could only play light or shadow cards if your hero was a light hero or a shadow hero. Yep. And so now we're shifting gears a little bit, and we're getting essences. And we have Ice, Lightning, which Lexi is, and then also Earth, which each of the other 2 heroes will be. And we can talk a little bit more about what exactly those are. But basically, if your hero has the essence of one of those elements, that means you're allowed to have those cards in your deck with them. Yep. And if your hero does not have one of those essences, you can't have, like Lexi couldn't have an Essence of Earth card anywhere in her deck.
Yeah, so I guess really the only difference to pay attention to for people playing is before you could kind of look at the bottom of the card and see Elemental Ranger Hero, and all you had to do is see if one of those words matched up with the card that you were looking to include in your deck. And now you just have to be a little bit more aware of, but I think it's going to be really exciting, the ramifications of what decks are going to look like and how especially things like Sealed and Draft are going to play out when you're looking to make decks. So yeah, exciting stuff. So
what is a ranger without her trusty bow?
That's right. So next, let's go ahead and take a look at the aforementioned bow called Shiver. So Shiver is an elemental ranger weapon, 2-hander, so you can only have 1, but it has a once per turn instant where you can put an arrow card from your hand face up into the empty arsenal zone you control. And if you do, you can choose one of 2 things. The first thing you can choose to do is that it gains +1 until end of turn, or that card gains Dominate until end of turn, which I think is great. These are awesome options to pump or to get through that last bit of damage by reducing the number of blockers that your opponent can use. So yeah, I think that's great. Do you have any thoughts here on Shiver?
Yeah, so this is not completely different from what we're used to with Azalea and her bow. Lexi's cards are going to have a lot of really good on-hit effects, and Shiver helps you either pump them up so you're more likely to hit, or like you said, make it harder for them to be blocked so they're more likely to hit. It's interesting that we're going to talk a little bit later. We have a couple cards that actually let you get either multiple arsenal zones or let you get multiple cards in per turn, so you can cycle through a lot more of those kinds of attacks, which is pretty exciting.
Yep, and I'm looking forward to talking about the arsenal changes, because anybody who's had a turn where you have more intelligence or just more cards in your hand, it feels incredible in this game to be able to have those options. So that'll be awesome. So let's see, what's next?
Let's get into the essences a little bit more specifically. So lightning is one of Lexi's essences, and the lightning effects we've seen so far generally speed you up. They either give your cards extra power or deal damage after they hit, so kind of a double effect, or they allow you to go again and be able to play more cards in a turn. The ice effects we've seen so far slow your opponent down. They either make them discard cards or they create a Frostbite token. And do you want to read what Frostbite is?
Yeah, so I pulled up Frostbite here on the screen, and it just says cards and activated abilities you control cost an additional resource point. So at the beginning of your end phase, or when you play a card or activate an ability, destroy Frostbite. So it's kind of like a punishment for one action or card where you just pay one more to do that. And those don't come cheap. You know, that might be an extra card out of your hand, and all of a sudden you're playing with one less. And so I think it does a really good job of balancing out those extra arsenal effects that we have. But yeah, tell me your thoughts. Do you think this is going to be prohibitively hard to play around, or do you think it's balanced out, or how do you think this is going to impact the game?
I think this is going to have a big impact on Classic Constructed. We've seen chain decks just go Soul Shackle, Soul Shackle, Soul Shackle, and they're able to get 8 or 9 cards in a turn, and they're able to play them all because they all cost 0 or 1, and they're able to just really, really chain those together. Yeah. But with Frostbite, if your first thing that you're trying to do costs an extra 4 or 5, and everything in your hand is a red line card, you're going to have a really hard time doing anything, and then you're going to get stuck with a bunch of blood debt. And so this is really, really, really going to punish really, really efficient, aggressive, all red line strategies, and it's going to make control a lot more viable, and it just may make other mid-range decks that have been pushed out of the format so far because of hyper aggressive decks, it may allow them to get a little more breathing room and be able to flourish a little more. So yeah,
so like you said, a definite counter to a lot of these chain builds. And you know what this reminds me of is was it the Hate Bears decks in Magic the Gathering, where everything costs 1 or more and things like that? And it was, like you said, the similarities between how it shuts down chains and Flesh and Blood, and how those decks worked in Magic the Gathering to shut down things like Storm and other combo decks is really similar. So it's always cool to see an analog and to wrap your head around kind of what this might look like. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it changes up the constructed meta.
So let's get to our other ice hero.
Yeah,
who has now met Oldheim, Grandfather of Eternity. I'm curious to see if I'm saying that right. We'll find out at some point, I'm sure.
We'll find out. Yeah, we got to wait for from the creators of the game kind of video, and they'll say it like Oldhim, and we'll all rage out but have no control over it. So
yeah, hopefully they'll tell us when we're watching coverage of this in a week.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. For context, a week from today is the Calling Vegas. Is that right?
Well, the main event starts a week from today, and then Friday, the day before, so 6 days from now, we're recording this on Saturday, they will do the first ever Tales of Aria release event at GP or Calling Vegas.
Calling Vegas, yes, not to be confused with terminology. The Pro Tour of Magic the Gathering, upon which all of this is modeled. Wisely so, I think. I'm glad to see how it's set up. But yeah, so 6 days out, we'll get to see live coverage, so don't miss that. Okay, gotcha. Well, let's take a minute to look at Oldheim, Grandfather of Eternity, and see what he's all about. So he has the essence of Earth and Ice, which means that he can have both Earth and Ice cards in his deck. His once per turn defense reaction is that he can pay 3 resource points. And it says, if an Earth card is pitched this way, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to Oldheim this turn. If an Ice card is pitched this way, the attacking hero puts a card from their hand on top of their deck. Okay, so he blocks out and he does a little bit of control, hand control. What do you think about this? What does it seem as strong as Lexi, or different, or how do you feel?
I'm really curious to see what his weapon is going to be, because we've had a Guardian in the past. It was Bravo, and Bravo, like this, was very resource intensive. And a lot of times the strategy with Bravo was to just block everything your opponent does, keep one card in hand, and use that to hit them with your big hammer. And we don't know if Old Team is going to have a big hammer to hit with.
Yeah.
So that's going to determine the lines of play that you have available. And we just don't know that yet. But what we can tell is that it is going to be very resource intensive. They've spoiled a few of the Guardian cards, and I think the cheapest one costs 3, and I think there's one that costs 8. So you're going to have to do some setting up. You're going to have a lot of blue line cards in your deck to just be able to pay for everything. But once you do, you're going to get some really, really powerful effects.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see, like you said, what the weapon looks like and what those effects look like. I know one thing that I don't want to happen is that his cards are also just super defensive, and he just pitches to defend every turn, and it turns into a fatigue battle. Because we've seen plenty of decks that already kind of work out like this, and while they're effective, they're not necessarily fun to play as time-wise. You end up spending an hour in a game that could have been 30 minutes, and also for your opponent, they just have to sit there and hope something gets through before their deck runs out. So I'm interested to see if that falls in line with other fatigue decks, or if, like you said, he just gets some really cool, I blocked for a few turns, and while I've been doing that, I've set up this thing and blocked 20 damage or whatever it is, So that'll be really cool to see. So I guess the next thing I wanted to talk about is some of the new mechanics we might be running into. And so far, we've got a good look at this mechanic called Fuse. So let's take a moment, and would you kind of help me understand the card we're looking at and how Fuse plays into what we know about Tales of Aria so far?
Sure. So this is an example of a Fuse card. It's called Entwine Lightning. It's an elemental action, and it has Lightning Fusion, which means as an additional cost, it's an optional additional cost, you can reveal a Lightning card from your hand, and then if it is fused, in this case, this card gains go again.
So I'm going to make sure I understand. You play Entwine Lightning, and because it says you may, it's an optional cost. So you've played and you choose to reveal Lightning card. And once you've revealed that, Entwine Lightning has now been fused, which means that it gains go again.
Right. So now you're attacking for 4 go again, and presumably then you can play the Lightning card that you revealed.
Nice. Okay.
And all of these have... There are fuses in every essence that we've seen so far, and all of them have slightly different effects. Some of them make your card stronger, some of them make your next card stronger, some of them make your opponent discard a card. It varies quite a bit, but the mechanic is always, I play this and I show you the card that goes with it that is the corresponding essence.
Gotcha. And so I guess my question is, are there also... this is a Lightning card with Fuse, and you may have just mentioned this. Are there other elemental cards like ice cards with Fuse or not?
Yeah, so far we've seen ice cards with Fuse. I don't know if we've seen any earth cards with Fuse, but that's been the one that they've been slowest to spoil. So I'm pretty confident we will get some. And the important thing to note with this is that it doesn't trigger itself. This is an elemental action, so you can't reveal this to a different card with Fuse. You have to have a critical mass of cards that have Fuse and then cards that are the right essence. And a lot of times they're not going to overlap. So it's going to have to kind of you're going to need a lot of both of them in your deck in order to be able to consistently have both pieces in your hand at the same time.
Gotcha. And I know what we've seen in the past is that a lot of times, cards that have Fuse matters one way or the other, and that critical mass you were talking about is pretty easy to achieve and constructed, and those decks end up being pretty effective at what they're trying to do. But in limited formats like Sealed and Draft, you have to have 10 to 15, I guess, of the card that you're looking, or the mechanic that you're looking to include. But like you said, there has to be some balance between cards that activate Fuse and cards that have the Fuse mechanic built in. So it'll be interesting to see when people have their hands on the cards and can start doing some sealed drafts, what that looks like and how many you need.
Yeah. Let's move on to the there are a couple different special cycles of cards that we want to kind of talk about.
Okay.
The first one is cards that confuse with either of two essences. So we have Flash Freeze pulled up here. Do you want to read what that does?
Yeah, so Flash Freeze is an ice and or lightning fusion, which means that as an additional cost to play Flash Freeze, you can reveal an ice and or a lightning card from your hand. If it was fused with an ice card, attacks you control this turn gain. When you attack with this, it gains Dominate unless the defending hero pays 2. If Flash Freeze is fused with a lightning card, attacks you control this turn gain. If this hits a hero, deal 3 damage to them. And Flash Freeze, after all of this, also has Go Again.
So super powerful, especially if you're able to get both of the fuse triggers. If you can get one or the other, it still is pretty effective, but you'd obviously in a perfect world be able to stack it so that you can get both. Please note that this is a majestic cycle, so this is not going to come up as often as we would probably like, because it's going to be hard to strike the right balance, and this allows you to be a little more flexible with what's in your deck to be able to take advantage of either half of your hero's essences.
So this will be presumably played in pretty much any deck with either if you draw it. And it, like a lot of, really rare cards, it's got a lot of text to make sure that it includes the ability to use it in a lot of different ways. And so, like you said, it might be really hard to find, but if you manage to pull it in a limited format, it's, pretty good chance you're going to get to use it. So, because it'll work with, I guess, all 3 of the heroes, no matter what, right?
All 3 of the heroes will be able to touch at least half of it, and then in this one in particular, Lexi can touch both halves. I don't know if in Classic Constructed, just getting one of the halves will be strong enough, or if you'll really want to just focus on Lexi and really build around getting the double trigger. But we will see once we get the complete cycle.
Awesome. So what's next?
Let's look at a cycle of cards that we've seen where they're action cards that have 2 essences. So this is a Lightning Ice instant, Pulse of Volthaven. It's legendary, so you can only have 1 copy of it, but in limited, I'm sure that's not going to matter.
It's a good problem to have if you do have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Your next Lightning, Ice, or Elemental attack this turn gains +4. And this is interesting. This does not have Go Again, but it is a lightning card, so if you can get it into your arsenal, Lexi can flip it up, and that'll give it Go Again. If you can use any other kind of lightning card that has Go Again or that grants Go Again, that can work. But you're going to have to find a way to be able to play this and then play something else, and it's not going to let you do that just automatically. But +4 for 0 resource points is pretty potent, and especially with Lexi's trying to get on-hit effects over and over again, it's going to be nice to... This is really going to help push through some damage.
Absolutely. And I think even in limited, if you can find 2 to 4 ways to make this work, it's worth holding on to and putting in the arsenal and waiting until you have the tools to make it happen. Because like you said, +4 is a big plus, and I think it'll be really cool to see how people manage to make this work.
If you're super lucky and you get Pulse of Volthaven and Flash Freeze in your deck, you can reveal this and it'll double trigger it, because this has both of the essences that you're looking for in 1 card.
Boom. Man, that would just be such a flex. If you pull that off in limited, people are going to be calling for the judge, but double majestic cards and perfect synergy, but one can dream, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Are there any cards that have caught your eye in particular, or should we move right on? I'm really excited about the Ranger cards.
Yeah, no, let's take a look at the Ranger cards. I've just been geeking out on Lexi since she came out, so this is a perfect continuation of that. And so let's get into it. So what you can see in front of you is a legendary Ranger equipment. So this will work perfectly for Lexi or Azalea if you're playing constructed and want to play back, but let's take a look at the card. So while you have a face-up card in your arsenal, you have an additional arsenal zone. When New Horizon is destroyed, destroy all cards in your arsenal. And it has Blade Break, which means that if you defend with it, you destroy it after the combat chain closes. So presumably, you could use this card to have another Arsenal Zone pretty much all the time for Ranger decks. And you never have to block with it necessarily, so you can just always have that availability. It sounds incredible to me. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, blocking for 2 is, it's upside that you have that option, but you're going to try your best not to have to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So when they released the, what are they called? The Armory reward packs, they released some of the art for that, and it included a playmat that had Lexi on it, and it had 2 Arsenal Zones depicted on the playmat. And keen-eyed speculators got really excited that we might be getting a second Arsenal Zone, and now we see how we are able to do that. Unfortunately, This is legendary, so it's going to be almost impossible to get in limited, and I'm sure it'll be quite expensive to get for classic constructed. But for Ranger lovers out there, and I am certainly one of them, it's probably going to be a must-have, because just that was always kind of a problem with Azalea, was you could load one thing with her bow, and you could even use her ability to swap it out, but you could really only ever attack one time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the Ranger cards, I mean, they're cheap, efficient cards. A lot of them have go again. You want to be able to just be cycling through your hand and firing off multiple arrows at a time and getting a number of different on-hit triggers. And it was kind of hard to do that before, because you just had so many ways. There weren't that many ways to get more arrows back into your arsenal after you've already used your bow. So this gives you twice the amount of places to put arrows.
Yep.
And then let's move on to our next preview card.
Yeah, definitely. So another one that I wanted to talk about that caught my eye was going to be Voltaire, which is another Elemental Ranger weapon. Once again, a majestic card, so don't get your hopes up for finding this in limited, but I think if you're looking to put together a Lexi deck, this is a card to play, right? So twice per turn instant, you can pay a resource point where you may put an arrow card from your hand face up into an empty Arsenal Zone you control. And if you do, you can choose one of the 2 following, which I believe this is the same as her common weapon, which is that it gains +1 until end of turn, or it gains go again until end of turn. Am I right about that?
The second ability is different. Her common weapon gives it dominate rather than go again.
Gotcha.
So this is a little more powerful in that I think go again is better than dominate, but I also think you get to use this one twice. So this is going to help you really get through a number. This is going to help you go wide a lot better. With Azalea decks, you wound up having to just kind of load up on one big attack and hope that effect was strong enough. And you had attack reactions to help force through damage. But now I think we're actually going to be able to see what Ranger was always intended to do, because between having a second Arsenal Zone and being able to double load arrows, I think we're going to have a lot more flexibility to go wide and really put pressure on a number of different angles.
So something that I've seen a whole lot of since Lexi was spoiled and some of her cards have been coming out is that a lot of the Ranger cards from back in the day when Azalea was released have been skyrocketing in value as people are looking to figure out what the best Ranger deck is going to be. So for people out there that might be looking to get these, can this card be included in Azalea decks?
Question. No, this card cannot. So the hood that we just looked at can. That is a Ranger hood, a Ranger head equipment.
Yep.
But this bow is an Elemental Ranger weapon. So right now the only Elemental Ranger we have is Lexi. Azalea cannot strike twice.
Too bad. But yeah, just looking out for anybody that's looking to put together the strongest Ranger deck. You can either wait until Lexi's out and use her, or you can find other ways to make Azalea stronger, of which we've seen plenty. But so just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so I guess that's all the card spoiler that we had for today. This is going to be
other cards that are commons that are out there, and you can just kind of start to see what's going on. But I think we've highlighted most of the big, format shaping things that we've seen so far.
Definitely. And in the description of the video, I'll include a page where you can go and see all the cards that have been spoiled so far so that you can take a look for yourself. what you've seen today has really just been what we feel like are some of the most exciting ones. Obviously, just showing off the Majestics and the Legendaries has been a whole lot of fun, gives you an idea for the flavor that you can expect to see. But the good news on top of all that is that there's still just so much we don't know. We have another hero to come out, which we presume will be the essence of Earth and Lightning, if I remember what's not out there. And we don't know what class it's going to be. So if you have a guess for what you think it'll be, or something that you just think would be really cool on top of the two that we've already seen, let us know. We'd love to hear from you and any thoughts you have coming forward, or something that we may have missed in what we've covered so far today. So let's see, what else is there going on, and what else can we look forward to coming up?
They're taking a break this weekend with spoilers, but those will start back up on Monday. So we'll have a whole new batch of cards to talk about and to look over together.
Cool.
Like we said earlier, next weekend is Calling Las Vegas. That'll be the first chance to see these cards in action, and it'll also be one of the biggest tournaments, I think, ever in Flesh and Blood history, which will be really exciting to see. It'll be classic constructed, and a lot of the best players in the world are going to be there, and it'll be fun to see what they brew up.
Yep. And like you said, unfortunately, they won't be able to use any of the cards we've seen today, but the day before that will be really awesome to see when people get their hands on a lot of these cards. I'm sure we'll see a lot of cards that we haven't had spoiled yet. So that'll be really neat.
Then a week after that, we have pre-releases. Everybody gets their first shot at playing with some of these. Michael and I cannot go to Vegas this time around, unfortunately, but so we have to wait and play on the 17th, but we can't wait to do that. And then release will be a week after. So I've already pre-released a box. It'll ship on the 24th, and can't wait to get my hands on some of these. And then we are very excited because The Calling is coming to Dallas-Fort Worth, our hometown. So on October 15th through 17th, there will be a big tournament with a lot of fun side events, a lot of fun cosplayers, and just, I don't know who else, but it's going to be a ton of fun, whether you're playing the main event or not. Those are always really, really special events to just get together with the community and get to meet a bunch of people and celebrate this game that we all love.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going to the Calling Dallas. In our last video, we showed the dates and locations for the other callings. So if you live nearby one of them and get to go to one, we'd love to hear about it. They're going to be great. Lots of good stuff going on. And other than that, I think that's all we have now. Look out for other videos where we'll continue covering the exciting spoilers that come out. There will definitely be follow-up from the Calling and the results there, and the cards that people are able to find after Vegas. And other than that, that's all we have. Again, socials are down below and in the description of the video. And we hope you've enjoyed this first week one of spoilers for Tales of Aria. More to come. Thanks, you guys.